Hey, I'm Keith Sparrow from NOLA.com and the Times-Picayune. My guest this week on Let's Talk is Jazz Fest sign maker Nan Parati. Nan, how many signs do you do every year for Jazz Fest?
For Jazz Fest, over 3,000. And we just added an extra day, so it'll be way more than 3,000.
You're busy every spring is what you're saying.
Oh, yes.
All right, well, tune in this week on Let's Talk to hear all the secrets of Jazz Fest sign making.
We're local and educational. You're watching WLAE-TV.
Inside New Orleans Sports with Eric Asher is underwritten by...
At Villeries Florist, we deliver the magic of flowers 7 days a week to the North Shore and South Shore in the New Orleans area. Whether it's for birthday parties, baby celebrations, Villeries provides colorful floral displays for all. With a store full of fresh-cut flowers, exotic tropical flowers, orchids, roses, and even fruit baskets, our goal is to make your vision a reality. Villeries Florist, proudly serving Louisiana since 1969.
Dave Miette Insurance Agency. Auto, home, flood, business, 504-556-0809. Dave Miette, INSagency.com.
CNC Drugs is a family-owned pharmacy that's been serving Southeast Louisiana for over 50 years. Whether you need help taking care of an elderly family member, a growing child, or even a pet, CNC provides patient-centered care for your entire family. CNC Drugs, large enough to serve you, small enough to know you. Locations in Mandeville and Araby.
Good evening and welcome to another edition of Inside New Orleans Sports. I'm your host, Eric Asher. Over the next hour, we're going to try to cover every one of the home teams, Saints, LSU, Tulane, Pelicans, all on the docket today. Breaking it down for us, you know it, one of the best we have. One of my favorite guests, Sean Fazende of Fox 8 Sports, joins us on the program. Sean, welcome to the show.
Good to be back. Thanks for having me.
Good to
it's been
have
a busy
you,
stretch.
It has been. It has been. Of course, this is always like this time of year, right? With, again, the Zurich. Obviously, again, now the draft. You've got... obviously, again, for those that like myself that enjoy the Jazz Fest, you got the Jazz Fest, but for our sports goes, it is wall to wall at this point.
Yeah,
and of course, college baseball now.
College baseball, and normally, not normally, I guess, but you would also have, in past years, you'd have Pelicans postseason in the mix as well. It's all kind of collides on this late April, early May calendar. So you roll with it. That's what we did. I was able to be off Sunday this past week, so I got to go to the Zurich just kind of casually as a fan. I enjoy it. That is a great just setup. I just like I love the Nate. I just love the feel of the Zurich Classic.
And you know, I will say this: it has come a long way. There is no.
Well, I think they found their groove.
Right,
I think.
they have. That's it. And let me tell you something. It is now a tournament that not just the golfer or maybe the person that watches golf wants to go to. It's an event. And that's it's a New Orleans event.
I think this may sound bad, but kind of the leisure feel to it, I think has really. I think the pros appreciate that. It's a little bit of the break in the monotony they have. Atmosphere. It's a little bit more of a relaxed atmosphere. You got a teammate, and you don't have to necessarily grind as hard.
Right.
And I think that fits New Orleans golf. It's probably not going to fit everywhere, but it fits New Orleans, and I think it's been a good event.
I think one of the things that when you look back at the Zurich, and again, the change they made, especially when, again, they brought the bands in, et cetera, what they did was they kind of set the template for, again, other PGA Tour stops around the country. You know, again, they got to try to match our food now. They got to try to match, again, you know, if you can, when the ball drops, do you have something for everybody to do in terms of music? So, again, I think you got a lot of New Orleans in a golf tournament that's maybe a little bit different because it's team play, which again is also intriguing for again maybe the novice watcher of golf.
And I think if you're one of these high level guys, Rory this year, Rory last year, now we'll see if he comes back, but it's maybe you would bypass it, but maybe I'll try it this year, man, with a teammate and just see how we do. So and then last year was epic. Obviously this year they didn't win, but they were in it. We followed him in from 15 to 18 the last day of the tournament. But all in all, I think it's separated itself enough while also remaining true to golf enthusiasts as well. So I think it's combined it pretty well. So I think all in all, it's become a really nice, obviously nice event in the city of New Orleans, but also a nice, unique stop on the PGA Tour as well.
It is, and look, it always was in some ways, because again, if you remember years and years ago, when the golfers would come in early, they'd take them on a fishing trip. They'd take them on a swamp tour. The wives would go down to the French Quarter. They go, and then of course the other part of that is the New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Festival, which again, with these guys, if they get a day or time, they can get out and enjoy that as well. Not to mention again all the incredible restaurants we have in this city. You know, after the last ball drops, they can get out and enjoy the nightlife as well. So it is a unique place in terms of the tour stop. And again, I think the Zurich has done a fantastic job in kind of making this a unique situation for not just for New Orleans to enjoy, but also for the golfers to enjoy as well.
We're not the Masters. You
No,
know,
we're not.
this isn't the U.S. Open.
No, it's not.
This is supposed to be a little bit fun, a little bit unique, a little bit of a break in the normal golf monotony, and I think they've done a good job of kind of colliding both worlds.
And look, it's good for all. I mean, families can go. You know, again, women enjoy it as well, even if a woman's not into
relatively
golf.
Inexpensive.
Right.
I use that term relatively inexpensive.
Sure, but again, and look, you may want to do a weekend. You may say, look, I'm going to go to Jazz just one day, and I'm going to do the Zurich another day. And then, of course, for those that, again, they're into the NFL draft, there's that as part of that as well. But no, they've done a fantastic job. Some say move the date away from the Jazz Fest, so that maybe again we might have an opportunity here in New Orleans to host a draft, an NFL draft. But again, I think that's going to be very difficult. I mean, I know that Walt Leger has said that again he thinks the city can host a Jazz Fest, a Zurich Classic, and an NFL draft all in one weekend, and I just don't think it can happen, because just the hotels that have to be blocked off for the PGA, the NFL, people are going to be coming in for Jazz Fest, security, etc. Look, I think we got a real sweet spot right now with where it is.
Yeah, and that's going to be different. There was over 600,000 people in Green Bay this weekend, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So you add another 600,000 onto the people that are already here. New Orleans does a great job hosting a lot of stuff, but NFL draft, it may not be in the cards just because of everything else that they host.
Of the dates, that's all.
And you know what? That's okay.
It is.
That's fine.
That's fine. Right. You know, and I know we do it better than anybody else if it came here. But right now, look, we got a plate full with the Zurich and of course Jazz Fest on that weekend, and of course, like we talked about as this conversation started, you know, those that are covering sports in this town that are pulled in all different directions during these couple of weeks. All right, you know why you're here. We bring him in because again, nobody talks Saints like Sean Fazende does. Sean, before we get started, you got some great programming over at Fox 8. Tell us all about it, the podcast. How can folks follow it?
Yeah, well, it's actually it's an interesting time at Fox 8 because we're about to move over to a building you know quite well. Next week we're there. We had a chance to do a rehearsal there on Wednesday. We're getting really excited with some of the things we're going to be able to do with a couple of the studios we have in there. Maybe do some different things with what I like doing, which is with the film study and the telestory, that sort of stuff. So we're going to have a whole new look coming very soon, but that doesn't change the actual content. Right now, my podcast, the Fox 8 Overtime Podcast with Andre Johnson Jr. and myself, airs Monday, Wednesday, Friday, wherever you get your podcasts. Also on the Gulf Coast Sports and Entertainment Network. Every Tuesday, we have the Fox 8 Overtime Show at 10:35. Thursday, the Final Bet at 10:35. And then the Final Play at 10:30 on Sundays.
Great lineup of shows, and again, the podcast is can't miss. You can also see that podcast on the Gulf Coast Sports and Entertainment Network as well, which is again is affiliated with Gray Media, which again owns Fox 8 as well. All right, let's get into it. New Orleans Saints picking in the top 10 in almost every round. When you pick in the top 10 in every round, you should come out with a draft that can be again a building block toward getting back to relevance when it comes to the New Orleans Saints. Kelvin Banks Jr., offensive tackle out of Texas, first pick. Your thoughts?
Well, first off, I was surprised at how well the board shook out for them and shaped up for them, because my two favorite, I say mine, not that my opinion matters, but just going through a lot of these players, but like Jalen Walker and Ty Warren were both available. I thought they would both be gone.
Me too.
And look, when I did my last mock, I did Ty Warren with the idea. I even said this or Jalen Walker here for me is the spot, but I think both will be gone. They both were there, so they had a chance, and I know they like both guys. But in the end, they did what they do, and I think a little bit was dictated with, look, this is a top 10 pick. We got to be rock solid, absolutely sure this guy's going to be our starter for the next 8 to 10 years. They had more conviction in Kelvin Banks Jr. Clearly, he was highest on their board. They could have had the top tight end available. They could have had the top outside linebacker / inside linebacker available. Decided to go with their highest graded tackle on the board, who clearly surpassed the other two in terms of the grades. I think he's a guy that's very clean. From day one at Texas, got in the era of transfer portal and all these things where the guys are going 6-7 years. He got in 3 years. He was out, very clean, started from day one. Left tackle started from day one, a lot like Will Campbell. So this is a guy that you say, okay, well, how soon does he get on the field? Well, top 10 picks, get on the field right away as a day one starter. And I believe it's going to be at the left tackle position, and then you mix and match whatever you have to do outside of that, because it's all about getting the best 5 on the field at one point. And I will say this, because I can understand, and we even had a little bit of that when we did our podcast, Thursday night last week. Andre Johnson Jr., my co-host, a little disappointed because it's kind of a safe pick, kind of a solid pick, kind of an unsexy pick, if you will. But outside of Trevor Penning, when they've gone this route, it has usually worked, okay? Andrus Peat got to a couple contracts with the Saints, was never a great player, but he was a solid starter. Who am I missing? Ryan Ramczyk was at one point the best right tackle in football. Cesar Ruiz is a steady starter. Eric McCoy wasn't a first-round pick, but he was the first pick that year. I think he's a top 5 player on the roster right now. The only one that hasn't necessarily worked out has been Trevor Penning. And I don't think the book is totally written on him yet, but I do think a new position trial is coming for him. Taliese Fuaga, day one starter, and I think Kelvin Banks Jr. is going to be a day one starter. So while it's not the sexiest move in the world, it's meat and potatoes, I do think they will get what they ultimately want, which is a starter at the left tackle position for the next 8 years.
I have been all over, again, getting better on the offensive and defensive lines because, again, that was needed and necessary for this team to move forward. But I'm like you. When their bullpen came up on that pick, and I see Walker there, and I see Warren there, and of course you see Banks there as well. They could have also went for the kid Johnson, the
corner,
one of the top corners.
Who really slipped.
Okay,
yes.
He really slipped. But they had top corners, so they pretty much had the pick of the litter of what they were looking for. And again, when you look at this pick, as you mentioned, Outland Trophy winner, Lombardi Trophy winner. Again, him and Will Campbell, best lineman in the SEC. Checks all the boxes that you're looking for. And the question now is, this is a guy that should be plug and play.
No doubt.
Where do you play him? See, to me, what I've talked about on the radio show since he's been drafted by the New Orleans Saints is you don't mess with this. This guy's been a left tackle since he went to Texas. He's a left tackle. You put him at left tackle. You move Fuaga back to right tackle. And maybe Penning, you try him on the interior at guard, because the one thing that I like about that is if you put Banks and Penning on the same side, let's just say in the running game, you want to put Kamara behind running those two guys, run behind those two guys, that's going to be devastating. In the passing game, he's flanked by two other players, a tackle and again, McCoy, who's the best player on that line as of right now, that can protect him better than trying to protect him on the outside, where he has problems obviously with speed rushers and bull rushers.
Well, look, and let's be honest, why it worked on the right side better than the left side was that oftentimes he had a tight end next to him. So I agree, and if you look at his style of play, I've always said on the show for many years, he's a forward-pushing lineman with heavy feet. So when he gets his hands on you going forward, he will put you in the dirt. He will grind you into the ground. You love that as a run blocker.
Yes.
But when he's got to work in reverse, what happens? He's one-on-one. More often than not, he's getting beat. Either it's around the edge, or if he's trying to get to the edge, he's getting spun back in, and he's out of control, or not out of control. He's out of position, out of balance, and it just does not look good. And when he got to the right side, it just felt like it was a much more. He felt a little more settled. But to me, if you've got a guy that's an elite run blocker, which I think he has the potential to be.
Agreed.
But he's never going to be a great pass blocker at the NFL level. He's just not.
Right.
He's just not. He wasn't even that in college at a small school. I think it's at least worth a try. But to me, this is the thing I think people are skipping over. Let's just say he ends up, he's just not one of our best 5. That's okay.
That's right. He can be the
Let
backup.
him be the 6th man.
Right. First guy off the
you
bench.
had O-line depth issues for weeks and weeks and weeks. It's probably the reason why you fell apart last year. Not probably, one of the biggest reasons you fell apart last year. If he becomes the 6th man, and he's got to be the tackle eligible, or if something happens, he can slide in. I mean, to me, to have a guy with 20-plus starts as a sixth offensive lineman, I think that's not the worst thing in the world. So I think it's very clear what the Saints are doing. And look at their signings, not just in the draft pick, but also in free agency. They are not going to leave themselves that vulnerable up front ever again.
Right.
You talk about the additions of Will Clapp, Dylan Reduns.
Yes.
And then now you add this draft pick to the mix. Now you have a good problem to find the right 5 as opposed to not having enough guys that can fill the spot.
All right. Again, I think he's plug and play. I think he's one of the guys in this draft that can be plug and play. Do you agree with that?
I think it would be a disappointment if he's not playing.
I would agree with that as well. Yeah. Okay, let's go to the big pick. The pick that I don't want to say it's a controversial pick. Some agree, some don't. 40th pick in the draft, second round. Tyler Shuck, quarterback, Louisville.
First off, love that he took a swing. I like the idea that they finally showed some stones and said, you know what? He's graded where we like. We understand it's the highest draft pick since Archie Manning, but we like him and we're going to pick him. I was a little mad at myself for being too late on him. In other words, I didn't really come across him until the Senior Bowl, which is rare for me with a quarterback. Only game I remember watching of his last year was Louisville-Miami because it was a shootout.
Right.
And I didn't even watch the whole game. I watched the second half because a little bit. I went back and rewatched it, as a matter of fact, last night. He has special traits. Like, there's a reason why Louis Riddick is so high on this guy. I mean, he has special traits because I'm in the sports office. Andre and Madeline are behind me because where we sit. The amount of times they had to look over and say, "What's up?" Because they're like, "Ooh, wow!" Like I'm saying it because some of the throws that they asked him to make and some of the throws that he completed. I mean, the arm talent's real. When I say arm talent, I don't mean just a guy that can throw it 100 yards. If that were the case, Anthony Richardson would be the #1 quarterback in the NFL right now. It's knowing when to use power, knowing when to use touch, knowing when to, when he's got to roll, throwing from different arm angles, which is all the buzz this year, or what's not all the buzz, but all the the new age sort of thing you look for in a quarterback. It used to be you pull them off the field, you throw across the body. Now all of a sudden they can do that. That's a check mark for him. But he's not a perfect prospect. He's not a perfect prospect because he doesn't have the down-to-down efficiency. And I think a lot of that can be attributed to the fact all of his seasons up until last year were choppy. 4 games here, 5 games there, 6 games here, 7 games there. Last season was the first season he started and stopped the full season as a healthy player. And I think the Louisville offense, while it was good, it also highlights the amount of difficult throws they asked him to make. A lot of sort of the throwback overs, which is across the field. A lot of rolling to your left, which is something he's very comfortable doing, rolling to his left, throwing back across the middle of the field. Getting press coverage, and he's got to basically just catch the snap, drop back, and throw the 9 route one-on-one down the sideline. I mean, these are not high percentage passes that you see with a 75% passer. That's why his completion percentage was a little bit lower. Got to get better against the blitz. Got to get better with pressure in his face. Got to trust his offensive line a little bit more. Can some of that be attributed to the multiple injuries? If that's the case, he's got to mentally get over that hurdle because he's going to get blitzed into oblivion if he does not get better at the blitz. And there's also there's a bigger picture question, which I think some fans are saying, okay, I have a problem with the Saints basically banking on Tyler Shuck being the franchise quarterback. No. A second-round pick is not a franchise saying he's our next guy for the 10 years. It's not nothing, but it's not a first-round top 15 pick where you're basically saying it's a huge disappointment if he doesn't pan out to be the franchise quarterback. I think Tyler Shuck is going to have Derek Carr notwithstanding. If Derek Carr's not back, he will have the opportunity and a very good chance to win the job. But if next year's draft rolls around, they have a guy graded higher, and they feel like the potential is greater with another quarterback, they can still draft another quarterback.
And you should.
So you got to take your swings. You got to be willing to take calculated risks when it comes to this position because you haven't done it yet. And how's it been? How's it worked out for you? So I think ultimately I like the pick. He grew on me later in the process. My last mock draft, I had him going 40. And I love this as well. I thought for sure they were going to have to trade back into the first round and get a quarterback. Or I thought they'd have to move up on day 2 to get him in the early 30s. Didn't happen. So they got to keep all 9 of their picks, and they got a quarterback that I think can start for them. And we'll see how good he does. But I think ultimately, you didn't have a whole lot of great options. But I do think the way it all played out, I think it ended up as good as you could possibly have hoped.
2 things I want to ask you about, and I know we've talked about on the radio show. Attributes for this quarterback. You like his arm?
Love his arm.
How about his accuracy?
Accuracy is something that I think he's got natural accuracy. I think he's got touch. I think when he gets inaccurate and when he gets erratic is when a lot of it has to do with when he's not trusting his protection. Sometimes his feet get a little scrambled. Some of it can be attributed to what I just said. There were a lot of difficult throws they asked him to make. And then I go back to that Notre Dame game. There were 4 throws. I mean, on the money, beautiful throws that were dropped. One that led to an interception in that game. So I think while it's not surgical Drew Brees, I think he's more than accurate enough. And by the way, way more athletic enough. I mean, there's a play in that Notre Dame game where he keeps it on his own read, runs for 50 yards. Now, he fumbled at the end of it because he didn't see the backside defender coming up under him. But when he was at Texas Tech, he ran a lot more. They're going to utilize that because he actually can move. And sometimes with taller guys, they can be a little stiff. He's very fluid. Now, he's got to get better at pocket presence. What do I mean by that? Understanding when to stay in, when to slide out, when to climb up and through, reset the play. But he reads defenses fairly well. And I think that he's got a good foundation to work with, but he's not a finished product, and he's not a perfect product. So if he does start day one, there's going to be a learning curve for him. That's just going to be
as there is for every rookie.
Everyone, yes.
Right. All right. When you talk about, let's put Derek Carr on the side here, because we're going to talk about Derek Carr a little bit later on in the program. But if it is him and Spencer Rattler going for this, going for the starting job, can Shuck be can he be plug and play?
Yes.
In your opinion?
Yes. Yes, I think he can. Now, I think people, want to say he's the guaranteed guy. No, I think he's got a very good chance to be the guy because I think he's Kellen Moore's guy. I think, and that's the other thing. I kind of have to defer to Kellen Moore on this. He's one with different styles of quarterbacks.
Right.
He's the guy he likes. It's the guy he likes. He's a brand new head coach. Give him that opportunity. But no, if it's clear, and it's clear to everyone, that Spencer's outplaying him and has taken that jump from year 1 to year 2, which a lot of guys do. You have way too many veterans on this team to basically keep the no. This has got to be Rattler's job because you can cause a divide really quick with that. Yeah, but I think it's going to be, if Carr's not there, a very genuine competition, and frankly, I think a fun competition because I think Rattler showed some things last year. But he has a little of the same issues that Shuck has when it comes to against the blitz, can get a little erratic, and I just haven't seen him do 4 quarters of solid football yet, consecutive. So I think that's all on the table this training camp.
First third-round pick at 71 was Vernon Brogdon, defensive tackle out of Texas. And again, it was talked about by, again, the Saints staff. And I mentioned this on Friday after the Kelvin Banks pick. With Joseph and Bo Davis on that staff, they had inside information on both Banks and Brogdon. That's why, again, some people said they thought maybe Brogdon was they picked him a little bit higher than maybe they thought he was going. But to me, if you got a coach that's been coaching that player and knows that player, if you got 2 guys on that staff that know the players that you're drafting, know their habits, know what they're like in the facility, know they're like when everybody's not watching, and they check off on that, you got to feel pretty good about those picks.
Look at the track record of Bo Davis. Developed college prospects, all those Texas linemen, not to mention Savion Jones and Braden Swinson again this year with LSU. He was only at LSU 1 year back at LSU. So yeah, I like the pick. Again, the defensive picks all felt like Brandon Staley. I need my type of guys. I need my prototype guys.
Which means that type of guys, somebody that can morph into the 3-4. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay.
And it's more the front that you use. And I tell people this because there's a misconception of positions when it comes to the 3-4 because the stand-up edge linebacker is technically a linebacker. We get confused with what a defensive end actually is. There's the nose tackle, defensive tackle, which I think on the surface he can play, like a Devon Gottschalk can play, but at 6'5", 311, which I think is his attributes, there's the nose tackle, there's a stand-up edge, and then there's the Cam Jordan defensive end. There's a guy in between those two who's basically another defensive tackle, but he's lined up a little differently. They can play the 5 technique or maybe a 4-eye where you're over the tackle as opposed to a 3 technique between the tackle and the guard. I think he'll give you some position flexibility, and there's going to be a lot of mixing and matching up front as well.
I agree with that.
And you got to be multiple defensively regardless. So you can be 3-4, you can be 4-3. It really all boils down to what do you do in red zone, what do you do on third down, who's on the field.
Well, and the biggest thing for the Saints is, again, you got to find individuals that can stop the run.
And I think I think they made a statement. They brought in Justin Reed. They brought in Devon Gottschalk. They got a tackling machine, which I know you talk to me about. They got a safety, which is coming up next.
Right.
They got a defensive tackle. They don't want to be 30, because 31st against the run, you can't stop anything if you're 31st against the run.
And to your point, the next 2 picks, and again, really 3 picks in a row. Brogdon, Jonas Senka, the safety out of Virginia, and you mentioned the tackle machine, Danny Stutzman in the 4th round, 112, linebacker at Oklahoma. This kid can play. Talk about Senka and
yeah, well, he's a guy, I wouldn't put him, single high deep. I wouldn't do that. I think he's more of a, if he's going to play the deep pass, it's going to be one of 2 safeties back. But he's absolutely in passing situations. He's a guy that's going to come down and play kind of that underneath coverage. He is a tackling machine. Very what's the word I'm looking for? Decisive against the run. He sees it, goes, gets it.
Yeah.
Short tackler. Love the fact that he's a short tackler. And I also this popped up. Because I was a little late on him too. He is relentless on special teams. Relentless. And I think that's how he's going to be on the field initially, because I think Matthew and Jordan Reed are going to start initially. But I don't know how Brandon Staley's going to view, do they go big nickel in certain situations? Is he the third safety? We'll see. Well, all that stuff will figure itself out. But I think he's a guy that he's going to embrace the special teams aspect. I think you need that middle round picks. I think he'll get like kind of spot duty certain times. And look, sometimes they could go dime. He could be a dime linebacker type. So I think there's a lot you can do with a guy like that. I think it's a quality 3rd round selection.
Now, if there is something he has to work on his game, it is coverage, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You're not going to put him in a deep middle.
Right.
Like if you do, I think he's going to get picked on a little bit. And if you do that, it will probably be a situation where he's the help guy.
Right.
He's not going to be the guy that's going to be responsible for picking up somebody getting past.
Strong than free.
Probably, yeah.
Okay.
I would think.
I love the 4th round pick in Stutzman. Again, I watched him in Oklahoma. He's always been a tackle machine. He's a guy, again, that goes downhill on you. Give me your assessment.
Built like DeMario. Don't overlook that.
I think that's the
built like DeMario.
Yeah.
6'3", 230. Is that right? I know he's a taller backer. And I think he's a guy with that much tenacity, that much love of football, that much energy. When you watch him, I mean, that guy loves it. It's going to be hard to keep him off the field. I think he'll be off the field a little bit initially, but I think they're going to have to find ways to get him on. He's another one. He's going to embrace the special teams role. I think life after DeMario is going to come at the Saints pretty quickly after this year, so you got to be ready. I think that's a guy, we'll step into how he does. I think that's a guy that can be that Mike linebacker that can truly be the guy that sets everything and checks everything. But I think it's a perfect person to learn from in DeMario for Stutzman.
Yeah.
But I also wonder, okay, how do you keep this guy off the field? Maybe you get him in as a strong side backer and base for personnel. Maybe you figure out a way to get him in red zone or a goal line type situations. But that much energy, I think it's going to be hard to keep a guy like that off the field.
I'm with you. The cornerback out of Louisville at 131, round 4, Quincy Riley. A lot of people believe that he's got a chance to come in and play immediately. Do you?
I do. This was the grade didn't match the selection to me. This was probably a guy that's the top 100 on their board, maybe even higher. This is a guy, and I was at this point in the draft, I was getting concerned because that was the need for me. Outside of quarterback was cornerback. But you were patient. You stay true to your board. You land a guy in Quincy Riley that I think ball hawk. It's some people just have a knack for it, and those are game-changing plays. Be very curious where he settles in.
Outside, inside? What do you think?
I think he's an inside because he's not quite as long as you would like on the outside. But I don't know Brandon Staley. I don't know.
Yeah.
With Dennis Allen, he loved those press man guys, and Brandon Staley is a little bit more of a kind of a match zone type type guy. So we'll see, but I think he's a guy, because I think Alontae Taylor, who's been very honest with all of us over the last few years, he prefers to be on the outside. Kool-Aid, who, look, we're assuming is going to be good, but I think there's some learning he's got to go through as well. I think Quincy Riley is a guy that can come in and battle for the starting slot cornerback position right away. You still have Isaac Yiadom, and I still think they got to sign that veteran at cornerback at some point as well.
I would agree with that. A lot of people like Devin Neal, the 6th round pick. Think he could come in and play immediately.
How could you not? I mean, this is a guy that's got. First off, it was a fantastic crop of running backs this class.
It really was.
And I had someone tell me that they felt like the Saints felt like they were going to get a quality back on day 3. And I was huge for DJ Giddens, the Kansas State running back, one of my favorite players in the class. They didn't get him. I think he went to the Colts. So the Colts got two of my favorite players in the class, Ty Warren and DJ Giddens. But Devin Neal, he's just a football guy. He's just a guy. I don't know if he's going to wow you with measurables. It's probably why he slipped to the 6th round, because I think he ran a 4.5.
Right.
So he's not fast, but neither is Kamara. Kamara's more of a smooth, balanced type guy. But production is production. I love the way he can catch the ball out of the backfield. Alvin Kamara is begging for someone to help him.
Yeah.
He needs someone that can come in,
Take some
and you
carries.
can count on that guy to give you 100, 120 carries this season and be productive. So I think he's got a chance to play immediately. In fact, I would be disappointed if he doesn't play immediately for the Saints.
Monteveo, the tight end out of UCLA, and Fidel Diggs, the defensive end out of Syracuse, were their 7th round picks, 248 and 254 respectively. Obviously, those guys are projects, but do you like those guys making this team?
I think both make the team. I think Monteveo is a guy that can, I think he's gonna kind of start from the blocking out. He got better as a pass catcher at UCLA, but he's going to be an inline guy. I think that's fair to say. Fidel Diggs, I remembered him at Texas A&M. Then I went back and watched the Syracuse tape, and I'm like, okay, there's way more versatility on this than you look at. He's 6'4", 260 pounds, so he's very rangy. He's very long. You can see it on the tape. So he does that stand-up edge thing. He can get in the backfield. But then you watch the way Syracuse used him. They would put him second level, standing up over the center.
Right.
You'd see him blitzing from the A-gap. You'd see him dropping into coverage from the edge and not look like a fish out of water, because sometimes that looks awkward when you see a guy like that. So I think that's a sneaky one for me, Diggs, because that was one of those, I knew who he was. I was like a 7th round pick. Then you go back and watch, and I'm like, this guy may have a little something here that maybe people overlooked. I couldn't believe how versatile the tape was when I went back and watched it.
One more question, Will. I know we're running out of time in this first segment here. Any of the undrafted free agents you think have a chance to make this team?
So when I talked to you on the radio, I said the punter. I still mean it, from Alabama.
Right.
The one other player is Yams, the running back out of, is it Delaware?
Okay.
I think just, you look at the depth chart, I think that's always been a chance where the Saints, or a spot where the Saints have found undrafted players. I've already talked to you about the running back class. That's another one as well, the small school running back as well.
Sean Fazende of Fox 8 Sports is our guest. I'm your host, Eric Asher. You're watching Inside New Orleans Sports. We're not done with the Saints yet. We'll be back. We'll talk a little bit more about, again, the draft, and also we'll talk about the Derek Carr situation, all that coming up after you hear from our underwriters. Stay tuned.
Located at 3701 Iberville Street in Mid-City is Katie's Restaurant and Bar. Open 7 days a week, Katie's offers daily specials for lunch, dinner, and Sunday brunch. Serving New Orleans cuisine such as fried shrimp platters, grilled redfish, and a fully stocked bar. And don't forget about our expanded event seating and local entertainment. Featured on the Best of Food Network's diners, drive-ins, and dives, Katie's Restaurant and Bar.
Burkhart's Air Conditioning, Heating, and Refrigeration has been family-owned and operated since 1989. Burkhart has energy-efficient solutions and offers brands such as Mitsubishi ductless AC units and Amana, the only manufacturer with a lifetime unit replacement warranty. Burkhart's offers maintenance bundle packages that include servicing your AC, generator, and tankless water heater. For more information on the services Burkhart's provides, visit acpromise.com. Burkhart's Air Conditioning, Heating, and Refrigeration, providing comfort for life.
Sean Fazende of Fox 8 Sports is our guest. I'm your host, Eric Asher. Welcome back to Inside New Orleans Sports. All right, Sean, some quick questions about the draft, and we're going to get into Derek Carr. All right, first of all, overall thoughts. Do you like it?
Yeah, I think it's solid. I think it's a solid B class, a B plus. I think it's a good infrastructure class. I think it's going to be some guys that they're going to contribute day one. There's going to be some guys that they brought in to do a little bit of the dirty work, and I think they'll be willing to embrace that. So I think all in all, I think this was a really good class, and I love the fact they went in with 9, they came out with 9. They needed a big class.
Yeah, that was. I got to be honest with you. That was the biggest thing. That, again, my biggest takeaway from this draft is finally some patience.
Yeah.
Understanding that you need players, you need rookies, you need young players that are inexpensive because to fill out this roster because of the salary cap situation, and they finally did it. Okay. Any future stars in this group? Guys are going to say that's an All-Pro. That's a guy that might be the Hall of Fame one day.
Hall of Fame, I don't know if I can go there.
Any All-Pros? Any guys?
I think Kelvin Banks can be a guy. I think Tyler Shuck has a very good chance to start right away. I don't know if he's a franchise. I think I think Danny Stutzman will eventually be a middle linebacker. I think Quincy Riley's a guy that's going to play right away. So I think it's a solid class. I think this is a good glue class. I don't know a top end star, but I think this is going to be a good group of glue players for your locker room.
How many starters do you think they get out of this draft?
Year one, I think you got Kelvin Banks. I think you got a strong chance for Tyler Shuck. I think you've got a very strong chance for the cornerback and Quincy Riley. And I think you'll probably have 2 or 3 other key contributors like Devin Neal. I think the linebacker gets on the field, Stutzman, and I think that safety's going to find his way on the field as well.
Right. I like the class. I really do. And again, I know, look, but I preface that by saying, when you pick in the top 10 of almost every round, you have to hit on these picks, and I think they've done a nice job. I know a lot of people don't like it's not sexy. Maybe it's the quarterback they were looking for, but I think that these are some foundational pieces for this team going forward.
Yeah, I think it's they needed a class like this. You got to take advantage of where you were picking. And you got to take advantage of what the class was providing. Right. And I think they checked just about every box except wide receiver.
That's right.
They checked every box except wide receiver, and if they had one more pick, they probably would have went with wide receiver.
All right. Where did they go for wide receiver, do you think?
Well, Keenan Allen's name is out there. He's the biggest name. He's obviously got a connection to Kellen Moore. I would have no problem with it. That room needs some veteran leadership. There's no doubt about it. I think that's certainly a possibility. I don't know where else you would go. I mean, you got a couple other guys that could be available, but I think that's the biggest name. I think stylistically, you just need a big receiver. The Saints don't need another 5'10" guy. They really don't. They need a big target, and I think that, he can provide that. So I think that's the biggest name out there. We'll see. I would have no problem with him. They certainly got the cap space.
Right.
And if he's a guy that likes Kellen Moore and can kind of be a guy that can help translate a little bit, because you get a new staff, especially with a lot of veterans that have been with the previous regime, I think that's not the worst thing in the world.
Yeah, I would agree as well. Okay, the Saints did release Ben DiNucci again, one of the quarterbacks on the roster. They signed defensive end Chris Rump II. He played with the Chargers under Staley. Now we get to Derek Carr. All right, Derek Carr spoke at a Las Vegas church. Sean Fazende saw the entire sermon. So again, a lot of folks like myself just saw the clip of him talking about again the situation of the Saints. I'm going to flip it to Sean and let everybody know again about what he saw and his thoughts on again what Derek Carr had to say.
Well, I saw the initial clip because the edited version, the 40-second version, whatever it was. I mean, he did not come across well. I mean, he really didn't. And I was ready to rip him too. And I've been probably the biggest Derek Carr defender in this market, at least on a consistent enough basis. And I was ready to go after him. Like, this is just disingenuous. This is a bad tone. This is whatever. And then I was about to get ready to do my one of my hits over at the station, and I was like, well, let me just watch this whole thing. Let me just see if he reveals anything else, because I could just tell. Sometimes the rage was just to put something out there. I was like, well, let me go check. And then sure enough, not long after the initial comments about his injury, which I didn't think he came across very well with, he revealed some of the personal stuff that he had been dealing with. His wife, who is a sweet woman. I mean, and I even talked about this on the Overtime show Tuesday. I was like, look, Derek Carr's fair game. His family's not. Because I had people coming at me with, this is fake, whatever. They said they rushed to the hospital. He said his brother David came over. They thought she was dying. I mean, and then they found out that nothing was wrong, but the only thing that was wrong was that she was pregnant and had a miscarriage. They didn't know she was pregnant. Right. So obviously that's a huge emotional toll it takes on people. He said this was right before they were supposed to come to New Orleans to deal with the shoulder injury, which was always my question. Right. Okay, this is too big of an injury. This is too big of a situation for the Saints to not protect their asset here. The Saints have their guardrails here. This is not NIL. This is the NFL, and it's a $40 million shoulder we're talking about here. The Saints would clearly have to get their eyes on this to see what's going on. So if he was supposed to do that, and that happened, you can understand why. That was in addition to some, I think it was a propane accident where that exploded in her face. Right. So she was dealing with 2nd to 3rd degree burns. So that at least provided some context to, because it kind of felt like at some point in the offseason, Derek Carr was ghosting the Saints.
Well, and that's it. The narrative has been he's on a European vacation.
Yeah, right.
Okay, the narrative has been he's doing, again, car videos, again, with his
YouTube
brother.
channel, yeah.
On the YouTube. Okay, so when you look at that and you see, again, his teammates have already started off-season workouts, and there seems to be a disconnect between the two, then you're trying, you're scratching your head saying, okay, who's in charge here?
Right.
Okay, this is a Saints asset. You got to be able to figure out what's going on with the shoulder. Why wasn't he in New Orleans, New York, Birmingham? I don't care where you got to go.
And my big gripe was, why hasn't Derek Carr said anything?
Right.
But then obviously he was dealing with deep personal issues.
Exactly. And look, I get it. It's not our business. Okay.
Really
but you're going to get shots taken at you.
Yeah.
If you don't give the whole story. And I understand from the Saints' perspective now. Look, there are HIPAA laws out there. It's not their place to go out and say, hey, Derek Carr's wife had a miscarriage. She had an explosion. There was an accident in the yard, and they are dealing with family stuff right now.
Yeah. And honestly, so that provides a piece of information that everyone was missing.
Right.
Okay. So that's one lane, that's one column, and that's why it was important. That's why when I tweeted that out, it kind of gained a lot of traction because I was surprised that no one else watched the whole thing, and I'm sure everybody eventually went back and did
I saw it now.
And it was a long sermon because he got a little, like he was kind of giving a sermon. So, so that's one column, but let's not.
Oh, you can't.
Let's not confuse that with the questions that still remain, which is because while all that happened, there's still no clarity on the exact timeline. That does not provide any more answers, clarity, or context to when did it happen, how did it happen, where did it happen, when did the Saints know about it, and ultimately what is going to be done.
Right. What's going forward?
That still needs to be addressed.
You mentioned on my radio show that also, again, David Carr, Derek's brother, came out on NFL Network and kind of maybe put a little bit more clarity on, again, how they found out the shoulder was injured.
Which also was Matthew Paris did a great article where he kind of went to the timeline.
Right.
Because the initial thought was it was not due to the injury that happened in December, but but David Carr said that they believe that's when it happened. I don't know. And when did the Saints find out? Because if the Saints found out, I guess they could still, even with an injury, could have restructured his contract because they needed the space. But man, it certainly feels like they would have tried to go a different avenue if that were indeed the case. And then I go back to the April 1st, Kellen Moore, NFL owners meeting, where he said, who hasn't said a whole lot, just in terms of being long-winded with his answers. He said, I look forward to teaming up with Derek Carr in the offseason conditioning program starting in 2 weeks. These guys get away, and they get a chance to come back, and it's all about football. That's April 1st. April 11th, 10 days later, the Friday news dump, he's got a shoulder injury. So the timeline makes no sense anywhere, and no one feels the need to, from the football side, explain those things. And I can still understand why there is some frustration about that, because this is not the backup right guard. This is a starting quarterback, the highest paid player on your team, and there's still legitimate questions about A, whether he wants to be here, and B, is he healthy enough to play?
Yeah, I would agree. All right, crystal ball this. Go ahead. I don't think Derek Carr's going anywhere because they can't afford to get rid of him. Okay, they've already used his cap space at this point. I think it's an $80 million cap hit. Lattimore and Ramczyk are your post-June 1st cuts. So I think at this point, whether he plays or not, he's here. What do you think?
Yeah, and here's the other thing that I've had to just kind of recalibrate everything, because you can't. Because this was out there, and this is where Eric was frustrated, and I guess in some sense I can understand it, but I think it was just the wrong venue to vent that frustration. You can't fake an injury in the NFL because there are guardrails in place. You can't fake an injury. You can't fake an injury. Now, this is obviously something the Saints had been aware of, but were they aware of it enough to where it could cost them the season? And that's the other piece of this is, Derek Carr, does he really want to? Maybe he doesn't want to be in New Orleans. Maybe he does, maybe he doesn't. But does he really want to not play football?
Well, when you only have a few years left.
That's what I'm saying. So is he willing to basically say, I'll sit out a year?
Right.
So that's why I think we got to take the injury for what it's worth right now. And if he can't play, he can't play. Now, if he's here, what else do the Saints do? They paid him. He's got to play.
Right.
And that's why Mickey kind of begrudgingly said if he's healthy, he's the starter. But I think that's a huge if. And I still maintain my 90-10 sort of ratio. I still think there's 90% chance he does not start here. But I'm leaving a 10% window open because if it all checks out and he can throw, I don't think they have a choice. They have to.
But I think with cap constraints, he's untradeable. Right?
Untradeable, and if he's got a shoulder injury, who's trading for that?
Who's trading for him? Right. And then again, he hurts his value next year if he's trying to get traded, or again if he's going to get released. So we'll see how it plays out. But it's a different context now when you find out there are things going on in the Carr household that we don't know about.
No doubt.
And I think as a human being, okay, you have to take a step back and say, okay, I know it's football. I know may not like the quarterback, but hey, at the same time, be a human when it comes to this.
Well, yeah, and look, and again, it wasn't him; it was his family.
Right.
And it's like you can go after Carr, the player; he's making all the money, but the family, I've never felt right about that. I've never, especially one like her who's really.
Yes.
I mean, she's never. I mean, I'm sure that she's heard a lot of nastiness coming from people that aren't happy with her husband at times, but she's never really responded publicly in a negative way. So there has to be a level of compassion to allow people to deal with certain stuff like that.
But at the same time, both parties could have handled it better.
I think that's the big picture thing we all should learn here. Is like, okay, let's get the communication going here, and let's figure out a game plan for how we're going to approach this. Because
especially when the first drop happened on April the 11th.
Yeah, I mean,
okay,
you're
at that point,
2 weeks out.
I mean, everybody was like the Saints were like, oh my God, how are we going to deal with this? Okay, I mean,
and it's still a little bit, and it's still a little bit mixed messages in terms of what they actually want to articulate about the situation.
All right, we got a few minutes left here on the program. I want to switch to college baseball. I hope to get to the Pelicans before we finish up. LSU, back on track to get to Omaha. 37-9, 14-7, second in the nation. Had a bad loss against Northwestern last week, but again, came out with a winning the series against Tennessee that was huge. And then, of course, a big one at A&M this weekend. Your thoughts on the Tigers?
It's an interesting team to watch because this is a team that's number 2 in the country, but I haven't always felt like they're the number 2 team in the country. That makes sense. They don't have the star power of other teams, of other 11. Just think of the stars in that LSU team that won a couple years ago. You had Paul Skeens, Dylan Cruz, Trey Morgan, Tommy Tanks. I mean, you had some stars, and I don't think this team necessarily has it. I think the move to Evans on Sunday I'm very curious if that sticks because he's also a guy that could be one of your better relievers. He is one of your best relievers. And you're never going to have a complete pitching staff in college baseball. You just don't have enough quality arms. But I do think that's the thing that makes or breaks a team. You saw that a little bit last year. What's interesting about this team, though, because it's just such a Jay Johnson thing, he wants a team that knocks the crap out the ball. And they don't on a consistent basis. They have spurts, but this is not a team that you would call lethal at the plate. I love the way Cade Anderson has developed into a legit Friday night starter. I stayed up and watched that Friday game. I don't know if you did. Against Tennessee, 1:30 in the morning. I thought I'm just about to tweet it's a bad look for LSU, blowing a performance by their ace that threw 11 strikeouts and didn't allow an earned run in that game to lose. But then all of a sudden they rally in the ninth and they win that series. But I think ultimately they've been able to manage through the gauntlet of the SEC. A&M is not going to be a gimme, even though they're a little off this year.
Right.
But I say that to say I think the path to Omaha is laid out. I think this is going to be a regional, super regional in Baton Rouge and get to Omaha. Can they win a title? Absolutely they can. But it's a little different feel to this team this late than other teams that have won.
But you like the fact that they're playing well down the stretch here with just a couple series left in the regular season. And it looks like now they're in position to get that regional and that super regional in Baton Rouge, which was always a path to Omaha.
Yeah, and look, it didn't happen last year, and then look how difficult it was, and it didn't happen. You want to get to Omaha, I'm sure, when it comes to LSU baseball, I'm sure there has been, but I cannot, forgive me, I can't think of the last time they did not host a super and got to Omaha.
Right.
I can't think of it. I'm sure it's happened. But usually when they have that full head of steam, that momentum heading into Omaha, it's because they know they got the box. They know they got that advantage.
Right.
You saw it in that. I mean, that for 1:30 in the morning, the box was still really packed in that game against Tennessee. So I think the path has been laid. At this point, they'd have to fall off to not get it, and that's regardless of what happens in the SEC tournament, because they're going to beat South Carolina at the end of the season. I know they got Arkansas a week after next, but I think they're in a good spot. I'm just very curious what he kind of hangs his hat on, because it feels like each game takes on a different identity, and it's been very interesting to watch this Jay Johnson team.
Yeah. All right. Tulane 27-18, 10-8. They got Florida Atlantic at home this weekend. This is a team that, again, the last couple of years have won the tournament to get into the NCAA. That's what they're shooting for, it looks like, again.
Yeah, but they're actually playing a little bit better in terms of those previous 2 years. They were able to rally in that tournament to get in. So maybe they're giving themselves a chance. I doubt it. I still think it's going to have to be a conference tournament type win, or at least a conference tournament rally. But they've given themselves at least a fighting chance when decision time comes to maybe kind of backslide in there, so to speak. But they found their groove. What did they put up 20 this past weekend? The weekend after they gave up 27. It was a crazy swing. So Ullman has certainly found his footing a little bit, and I like. Feels like the talent level has caught up a little bit, and they've been able to manage in the AAC, which is obviously a good thing for Tulane.
SLU, again, leading the Southland now. They got Lamar at home this weekend, 33-12, 18-6 in the Southland, and they look like, again, they're a tournament team.
This looks like the team, and it is always one of those Southland teams that generally makes the run. Was it
really good baseball? Is it
Nichols? It's a really good baseball conference. It's a really good baseball conference for, those guys that slip through the cracks, and they've got a pitcher that's fantastic. So it's one of those teams where it's one of those years for Southeastern where it's kind of clicking for them, and they got to make that run through the Southland tournament to get in. But if they do get in, they can make some noise. I don't think win a regional, but once they get in, I think they're going to be a tough out.
University of New Orleans is 23-20, 10-14. They got Nichols this weekend. They got some work to do to be able to try to get into the NCAAs. All right, Joe Dumars, you like the hire?
Feels a little safe to me. It feels like the process was already kind of picked up. It was already done before David Griffin was fired. I don't really like that kind of stuff. I prefer, this guy gave his all to the organization. We're gonna let you go. Let's go through the process of finding your replacement. I don't like the idea, or at least the optics of we have your replacement already ready. We don't know it. Did they interview anybody else? Did anybody even mention for the job? Was Trajan Lannon a guy they could reach back out to? I don't know. But in saying that, it's not like they can't be successful with him. He has been successful. That's been a while.
And let's hope he learned something from, again, the things that went wrong in Detroit.
Yeah, there's no doubt. But he was there for a while.
Yeah.
So he's got Louisiana ties. I do think there was a comfortability there. And I actually think, I've gone back and forth with David Griffin, but I think when you really look back on his tenure, I think he made more good decisions than bad decisions. It's just, I don't think any franchise has been more handicapped by the health status of their franchise player, the guy you have hung your hat on, the guy you have ride or die with, than the Pelicans and Zion Williamson. I think that ultimately caught David Griffin.
They were tied together.
That's it.
And again, when you couldn't get the maximum amount of Zion Williamson under his regime, then there was going to be a change. And look, somebody was going to walk the plank here. It looks as though Willie Green's coming back. All indicates he's going to be the coach next year. I don't like that.
Me neither.
I don't like being told that you got to keep a coach. I think a new broom sweeps clean if you're really truly into that. But that's that organization. That's what they do. So I want to shift to football for a couple minutes, because LSU and Tulane quietly putting together, again, pretty good portal classes. So Summerall, you just got to tip the cap to him, having to change his roster over every single year, it seems like, since he's been there. And look, Kelly's been active in the portal as well, pre-spring and post-spring. How do you think these two programs look right now?
I think LSU looks playoff ready. I think LSU looks national title contender ready. I think Brian Kelly understood the error in his ways the previous year where they did not attack the portal. I do not like two portal windows. I prefer one.
Yes.
Because I think it really wrecks. What's the point of? It feels like there's almost a roster shift twice between the end between before spring and after spring. But like we say a lot of times in college football now, it is what it is. I like the D tackle that they brought in. From what I understand, the edge pass rushers have really looked good that they brought in. It's all going to come down to who the best five is up front. Yeah. But I trust Brian Kelly with that, because that's something that he has hung his hat on even since his days at Notre Dame. So I think ultimately they have the foundation to be successful, but everyone else spent money too. And one thing I like, you got an experienced quarterback coming back. I think there's a clear-cut upgrade at the wide receiver position, which was probably one of the most under-discussed things last year because everyone thought the offensive line was better, and they could take a dip at the receiver position. And I do think defensively they're going to be better. They went from horrible to at least like below average last year. I think it's hard to have a dominant defense nowadays, but I think they could be at least a good defense this year.
On Tulane's side, last week again they signed former Iowa quarterback by way of Northwestern, Brendan Sullivan. They obviously again for Summerall, and just the situation is as a what is it, group of 5? He's going to get his team rated every single year, and he has been able to, at least in his first year, be able to come back from that. And it looks like the players you've got coming in, that they're going to be able to maybe again. I don't know if they're going to be at the top of the AAC again, but they're going to be competing for it.
And I think what's happening with Tulane is it's become sort of a okay. We couldn't get this guy in the initial round of recruiting, so he went to a bigger university, and it just didn't work out. And it's become the players that transfer in don't view it as a huge step down. They view it as one of those programs where, it may not be where I was at, but I can still get here, get on the field, play a lot. So I think he's benefited from that a little bit, where there's still a respectable build. There's a respect to the program, the conference they play in, and what they can ultimately do. I was curious because he brought in 3 transfers in the December window. Finley's already out, and now they bring in another one. So I don't know who's going to be the leader. Clearly, no one really emerged in spring to be the guy. They wouldn't have taken the quarterback. But ultimately, I think Summerall's playing the game the way he wants to play it, the way he has to play it. I don't think anyone wants to play it this way. I think they have to play it this way.
I would agree. And again, and to your point, it would be so much easier on these coaches if there was one portal where you didn't have to restock your roster after spring again.
Yeah, I mean that's what happens with the Tennessee Nico Amaleva, however you say his last name. That type of situation happens, and it's just this is. I mean, and there's maybe I'm old school, but when does the actual college part come into this, where you can transfer this many times in one calendar year? I mean, does it just not matter anymore?
No, it doesn't.
That has to.
Amateurism is over.
But
they're not college athletes anymore.
I mean, like. Okay, so we just
the word student athlete. You think that applies anymore?
It should still, but it doesn't anymore. And I just think that's gently eroded to where now no one even discusses that anymore. Like just the actual logistics of changing schools that many times in one calendar year.
And here's the other part.
It's semi-pro now.
What I don't like, okay, is again opening up a portal before the championships in that sport has concluded, which is mind-boggling.
It makes no sense. I tell this all the time. People will gripe about college football, and I say this, and I am one of them. But if you just fix the calendar, you would fix a lot of problems in college football, because a lot of things that we gripe about, it's because the calendar allows it to happen. If you fix the calendar, they still have problems, but a lot of the problems, the crazy going back and forth, will be solved just by fixing the calendar.
I don't think most people, again, are against NIL or against unlimited transfers. I would rather see a little bit of constraints on that. But again, I agree with you. Fix the calendar, you're halfway there.
Well, if you only have one portal and it's after, if you just flip-flop January and December, make that the postseason is in January, the recruiting's in January, and then you finish the season in December, I think a lot of problems will be solved.
Yeah, so do I. I agree with it again. And look, again, you got to have a leader to come tweak that. Right now, they haven't found a leader.
Well, because they get sued every time they try to lead.
So we'll see again. But again, I think the era of again players getting their share of revenue.
That's fine.
There's nothing wrong with that.
They get the rev share coming. I think rev share will probably standardize a little bit, be a little bit better.
So do I. Sean Fazende, Fox 8 Sports. Again, thanks so much for being with us here on Inside New Orleans Sports. All right. Thanks so much for tuning in. Remember, plenty of ways to catch our program. There's a QR code on your screen now that will take you to the WLAE-TV YouTube channel, and also my website, ericasher.com. Again, set your DVR. So many ways to catch our program. WLAE-TV, WLAE-TV 2, Pelican Sports Television. Set the DVR. You'll never miss the program. Catch me on the radio 4 to 6 weekdays, 106.7 The Ticket. You can listen live at ericasher.com. Also, again, we have a 106.7 has their own app. iHeartRadio, TuneIn Radio. So many ways to catch our program. Make sure, again, you check us out 4 to 6 weekdays or, again, at your leisure with the podcast. Want to thank our underwriters who make this show possible. Please support the underwriters who, again, support our program. We appreciate each and every one of those underwriters. Thank you for supporting our show. And, again, special thanks to the staff here at WLAE-TV who produce our program each and every week. Ron Yeager, Jim Dotson, Thomas Healy, Alex Chacon, and the best director on the planet, William Hill. For Sean Fazende, I'm Eric Asher. Thanks so much for tuning in. We'll see you next week for another edition of Inside New Orleans Sports. Thanks for watching.
I'm Keith Sparrow from NOLA.com and the Times-Picayune. My guest this week on Let's Talk is Jazz Fest sign maker Nan Parati. Nan, how many signs do you do every year for Jazz Fest?
For Jazz Fest, over 3,000. And we just added an extra day, so it'll be way more than 3,000.
You're busy every spring is what you're saying.
Oh, yes.
All right, well, tune in this week on Let's Talk to hear all the secrets of Jazz Fest sign making.
I had to pack up all my things. I had to leave my home. And I never knew where I was going next. But then you came along.
There's a child in foster care waiting for a volunteer like you.
We're local and educational. You're watching